Welcome everyone to the first PDW of November 2017. Happy today to introduce to you our topic, which is the Agricultural Sales Career Development Event. And with us today is Kara Heidemann, and also a special guest, a judge for the last year's Ag Sales event. And I just forgot her name. Can you?
Jane Schroeder. She's been a judge for me as long as I've been on this contest. She's got lots of experience seeing lots of things.
So Jane will be talking to us today about best practices and some other things too. And so with that, we're very happy to have you here with us, Kara and Jane. And so I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I have just a brief PowerPoint.
Actually, do that.
That one.
Yep.
Okay.
And then just
share screen.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can scoot over on them.
Well, there's my PowerPoint. And I lost them.
Can you guys see this Ag Sales PowerPoint full screen?
I can see it, yes. Yep.
Okay. I can't see you. All I can see is my PowerPoint. So if you have a question, shout it out. I have no nonverbal communication here. So as Matt said, my name's Kara Heidemann. I've been Ag Sales Superintendent since 2012, I believe. I work in the Department of Ag Economics with a lot of undergrad and graduate students, many of whom go into sales. And so I see this as a really good, I guess why I think this is so important, other than the large amount of money I get paid to do this, is that I see exactly how this career development event goes on and students have careers in this area. So, well, I'll kind of give an overview of the contest, a broad overview just of sales in general, go over the contest preparation, the day of the contest, and then Jane's going to jump in and share some of the things that she has seen. She's done it for a number of years, have a lot. When you judge this, you get to see a lot of students during the day. So she's got a lot of experience and can see some of the things that students do well and some of the things that students often have trouble with. So as I was kind of thinking about ag sales and sales in general, one of the things that came up to me is, why should you do this? What's the point of, why did FFA think we needed this contest? And also thinking about what is sales. And I think when a lot of people think about sales, think about this guy, the sleazy used cars and salesman, high pressure sales tactics, trying to get somebody to buy something at all costs. And I think that turns people off. I know I have my own students who, there's a lot of sales jobs in agriculture out there, but when they hear the word sales, they think of this guy, don't want to have any part of it. So I think starting to kind of change what we think of as sales might help you get your students to want to participate. And then, some of the things that Jane's going to talk about how this is really just a conversation. There's a quote I found on Twitter the other day that I think really applies to sales in general and to this contest. Selling is nothing more than a conversation about someone's needs. So one of the things that I know Jane's going to talk about, and one of the things that I see a lot of, is this is not a presentation. You're not trying to get these 5 pages of information in this 10-minute presentation. You're having a conversation with this person to determine what they need. You need to know about the product and what features and benefits of the product they are interested in. So my mom was a math teacher. So whenever I'm doing anything, I also think about, when am I ever going to use this? And I talked a little bit about all the jobs in sales that my students get. But I want to talk a little bit about all the careers. There's a great book that's listed as one of the resources. It's called Pro Selling. It's one of the few ag sales texts that are out there. The book is available, $75, but if you don't want to purchase the book, there's also proselling.com. Their website. They've got all these PowerPoints. They have examples, people selling. So it's a great resource. And one of the things that they talk about is why you should want to participate in sales. And so it's really about helping people. You get to have freedom. I know my mom was a math teacher and her day was scheduled, but my brother's in sales doesn't have that. Pretty good money, and you get to choose where you want to live. And even if you don't want to be in sales, all of these things that we're going to talk about to prepare for the contest, preparing, getting your background information, learning as much as you can, being able to communicate, and then taking a step back and evaluating what went right, what went wrong, are important for anything. So now while you're all here, on to the contest. On Ag Sales CDE website, it's not updated yet, but I know it will be soon. Every year before the contest, you'll get the product information. So it's a sheet with the price of the product, the price of some that might change. You might find it elsewhere at a different price, but the price that's on that sales sheet before the contest is what we're going to use for that. So this year it's a welding helmet, pretty neat welding helmet. I'm not a welder, but my brother tells me it's got lots of bells and whistles, and some complimentary products and a little bit of information generally about the product. There's a company that these students that will be participating in the contest will be assumed to be employed by. It's this company that I've created. It's Nebraska Welding. It's a fictional company. What I did was look at welding supply companies throughout Nebraska, kind of take some of what they do and make this fictional company. But I would really encourage you to find one of these actual companies that do this, where these actual salespeople are, and give them a call. The first year that I did this contest, there was a product that was the livestock waters. And it was this company that I had been at a trade show, and the guy was next to me at the booth, and I thought they were interesting. Well, I was at the same trade show next year with him, and I said, I for FFA Ag Sales in the state of Nebraska, we used these your product. And he said, oh, that's what it was. He and his colleagues kept getting all these calls from Nebraska. I think they were based out of North Dakota, and could not figure out why. But I said, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, no, it was great. We loved it. These students were so wonderful, so professional and so polite. It was so great to talk to them. So I really encourage you to go out, make those, go find these people that sell these types of products, and really make that personal connection. I think they can give you some really helpful background. And then the other thing that will be up is the 2016 tests along with the answers. So after you've done your districts, prepared for this contest, we're going to jump ahead and assume everybody makes it to state. It'll be an 8-day contest if that was the case, but that would be great. So for the state contest, as soon as you know that you are going to participate in state, if you want to email me with what times work best for you, I'd be happy to put you on the schedule. I know there's some contests that require students to be there for the entire time for a 4-hour block, or you have to go back downtown, and there's all these things. Well, this contest I can be pretty flexible with when you go. So as soon as you know that, if you want to email me, and I can put you, usually what teachers say is, can we go first? Can we go last? And I'll do my best to put you on at a time that works. Last year's check-in sheet is on the website, is still on the website. So you can see, start checking in at 12:15. It probably looks pretty random how I have scheduled the check-in times. There might be a group of 8 people checking in at schools checking at one time, and then 1, and then 3. It's to really make those rooms fit. So after districts have all been completed, and I get the entire list of the schools that will be competing. I make up the randomly placed schools on the list in the remaining slots. And after that, you teachers can work together to come up with, if you have conflicts, to switch, and that's not a big deal. We just use a Google Doc that's constantly updated if you need to make those changes. So, day of the contest, everybody's got scheduled what to bring. So the only required, other than your official dress, is a 1-inch binder, and every participant needs to bring a binder because they're going to need them for the team competition and then each individually when they go to their individual rooms. Something that some people bring but not required to, calculator. There's no math on the test, so you don't need that. You can bring a calculator if you are calculating the sales at the end per person. I provide pens, pencils, paper in the contest room. I know. Was that a question or just okay? Okay, I'll just keep going. So, I know in the past, before the contest format changed, there was a lot of emphasis on making, it appeared there was a lot of emphasis on making your own sales sheets, sales promotional materials, because everybody had their own contests or their own product. That's not necessary. There's no place that you're going to be judged on your graphic design skills, having a glossy sales sheet, but you can put that information in your 1-inch binder if that's something that helps you, but definitely don't spend too much time or money on that because unfortunately at the end of the contest I just have to throw them away. Otherwise, my house would be wallpapered and this stuff. But the other thing that I like to keep is don't bring the product. I know this year it's probably something that you could carry and bring, but just to keep it level playing field for everybody, don't bring the product. But if you have a picture of the product in your binder, that's fine if you want to show that. So, day of, you get to Lincoln, everybody has made it to Thursday. Check-in is on the 3rd floor of the East Union. Check-in at the time that's listed on your schedule. It's 15 minutes before your time will start. You do not need to check in earlier. Those of you who have participated in ag sales and have maybe checked in the middle of the day, you can see that the 3rd floor of the East Union is pretty chaotic at this time. So we really try to keep people on schedule, because what happens if people were to check in earlier, we would lose them. So keep them checked in on this schedule. It's fine for them to wait around the East Union if you have to leave them, but that's something that's me and the person that helps me with this process thinks is really important. So check in. The East Union, there's a lot of rooms, a lot of different places. Like I said, a lot of chaos, a lot of students. So what I do is I create cards for each individual. Team 1, and I give you all numbers. You're not names, so I don't have to redo this every year. But so Team 1 will go first to participate in the team competition part in the Sycamore room, and then they will split up to go to each one of these 4 rooms, and then they will go to the test. Now, it's really important that they do this in this order. This is kind of why the check-in and everything looks a little funky, because everybody has to do the team first, because that's where you do your planning for what you're going to do in the individual. So, team activity. The team activity, think of it as the 4 of you, the 4 students on the team are salespeople. You're working for Nebraska Welding, and you are getting ready. You've gotten this new product, this really neat, cool welding helmet, and you're going to go out and meet people and try to sell this product. before you do that, you need to think about the product, you need to think about who you might sell to. So your boss has gotten you all together in a room and you're going to plan what you're going to do. So again, the students are the salespeople, the judges are acting as their supervisors. So you have 20 minutes to think about the scenarios that I'll show on the next screen. So 20 minutes, and everybody, a huge part of this is everybody working together. I know there's some teams that probably have some superstars, but it's really important that everybody participates in this 20 minutes. So there's a list of questions then of things that you should think about. Think about what the needs are of that particular customer. Think about some strategies that you might use. So after that 20 minutes, after you've worked that out, and I have pens and papers in the room for the students to do this preparation, then you do a presentation. It's not a formal PowerPoint presentation, more of a conversation with your boss saying, okay, these are the people that we're going to go sell this product to, and this is how, these are the strategies that we're going to use to sell this. So 10 minutes then for that presentation, and then the judge / boss has 10 minutes to ask them questions. Why did you do this? I know something they might say is, I noticed during your when you were planning, you decided not to do this. Could you talk a little bit more about that? So 20 minutes of preparation, which usually a lot of people don't need to take the entire 20 minutes. 10 minutes to present, and then 10 minutes for questions. So here are the customer scenarios from last year's product. Last year's product, for those of you that didn't do egg sales, were trees. Some certain kinds of evergreen trees. And so there are 3 different customers. And so during that team sales content activity, the students thought about all 3 of these customers and their needs and their interests. So the manager, I don't remember exactly what the trees were, but I know there was one that the manager of the park in Northwest Nebraska is probably going to be interested in. So those students said, yeah, this guy's going to be interested, or gal's going to be interested in these kinds of trees. This is the benefits that we're going to really focus when we talk, if we go talk to this customer. So after that team activity, they're prepared. They're ready to go on to the individual. They've hopefully thought about the customers. And so they go on then to the individual activity after the team. The judge is one of the customers from the team activity. And you students don't know which person this is. Think about it. You might be, so I guess what the students really need to do is ask questions. I know last year, I believe it was really windy, I think, during that day. And so I know I heard a lot of, well, gosh, how about that weather? Those initial questions, and then more probing questions to figure out what the needs are of this particular customer, who they are, what their interests are. So during this conversation that's happening in the individual activity, you have 10 minutes. And one of the things that seemed to come up quite a bit last year that I heard was students inventing specials and say, oh, well, I can give you 2 for 1. I can give you 50% off if you buy this many. So I kind of want to make it clear this year that that's something that's really at the discretion of management. You might have to go back and ask those questions. So that just sell the product as it is with the price. But I think it's also important to realize that there are no points for getting this judge to buy the product. You are judged on how well you know the product, how well you can follow these sales principles, not on buying not on getting the product. That's, I think people try to focus on doing whatever they can to get the product sold, and judges don't have to buy the product. I imagine most of them probably do at the end, but not required. So I think not focusing as much on just trying to get that sale like that sleazy used car salesman is something that's important to think about. So after the individual activity, you go on to the test. It's basic sales principles. I know on the website there's a lot of resources. There's that pro selling book that I talked about. It's not a lot of, Scott Downey's theory of selling is this model, name that model. Not specific, like general basic sales principles. And one question I know I always get, there's no math, so don't need a calculator for this part of it. So like I said, the last year's test will be on the website. And another good hint to prepare for tests, there's a lot of other tests around the internet that might be helpful for you. So now I'm going to exit out of it and see you guys again. Oh. Okay. There we go.
And if you're done sharing your screen, hit the stop share up there.
Okay. Okay. So that was the contest really quickly. I don't know if you had any questions right now, if we wanted to turn it over to Jane, one of the judges. I know she's got some list of things that she'd like to go through.
Kara, this is Chris. I do have one question. When you were talking about the different scenarios on the team presentation, is one of the scenarios laid out to the person that would buy that product and the other two are kind of a little off base? Or no, are they all potential
they
customers?
Are people,
Does that make sense?
Something that would have a reason to buy this. So, the tree example from last year, one of them is not going to be probably an extreme example that this person lives in an apartment building and owns no land, for example. So that they have a reason that they might be interested in purchasing the product.
So then the team then needs to focus on what are the needs of that individual and how can we help fulfill their needs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else before we jump to Jane?
So I have a question. This is John Lechtenberg at Southern Valley. I host our district contest. And on those scenarios that Chris was talking about, I try to give those kids a little bit of information, like you met at Husker Harvest Days and they'd mention interest in your product, yada, yada, yada. You're following up with them. And then I give the judge some additional information. And they might know that they live on an acreage or they just built a new house. Like last year, I think was planting trees or something. Mm-hmm. A fungus went through and wiped out a bunch of trees. But then the judge has additional information that the student doesn't know, such as like that they actually own 3 different houses that they rent out that have the same problem. And if the kids ask enough questions, they find that out. Is that something that's good or bad to give the judges background stories that the kids maybe don't know the whole story?
Well, the scenarios that I try to pick are really allow, I guess, for some flexibility for the judges, but so they don't get, as the student is participating, they're not going to come up, and the individual is not going to come up with some sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, a gotcha that, oh, by the way, I also have this issue that you haven't thought of. So I guess that's kind of why I keep it pretty general. I do give the judges more background information on the products and how people are going to, what their needs are for this, particularly if it's something, this last year was a little different because it was, these people are homeowners in a lot of cases, but so for example, we had a hog, it was a swine Gatorade, I think people called it, and I gave them a little bit more in-depth background information about why I think there was one of them that was a show hogs, what their needs are and what their concerns are. Does that answer? No?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it fits fine. Thank you.
All right. Jane, we don't see you, but we are ready for you.
Very good. Well, thank you, Kara, and thank you to the rest of the group today for letting me be a part of this preparation process. My name is Jane Schroeder, and I live just outside of Lincoln. I started my career as a sales trainer and spent the last, probably 15 years working with sales as a marketing manager with both Syngenta and Monsanto, and I currently work as a word-of-mouth marketing project manager for Beck Ag. And as Kara mentioned, I've been judging this event for about the last 5 years. So as we go through my thoughts this afternoon, I'm going to start out, first of all, talking about some of the things that I think would be important as far as getting prepared, and then talk a little bit about some things to think about the actual day of the event. So as we get started here in talking about the background, one thing that I thought of is just thinking back of all the salespeople that I've worked with over the course of my career. And one of the things that you might want to consider as you're selecting your team is this. Most of those salespeople I worked with would tell you I'm really an introvert that was forced to become an extrovert. So as you're looking at the people that you have available, the students that you have available, you might want to reach out to some of those more introverted people to be a part of this sales program, simply because they probably maybe don't come top of mind and they're maybe not as outgoing, but they are the kind of people that make the best salespeople. And so kind of keep that in mind as you are looking at the students that you have available for to be part of this team. And as Kara mentioned, more and more students are going to be going into sales after college. And even if they aren't selling a product, every day you have to sell yourself. So selling is definitely an important part of everyone's career. Kara mentioned a little bit about sales training and the David Downey Pro Selling book. I had written down that value-based relationships would be a good place to start as someone is preparing for this contest. How am I going to prove that this product that I'm selling has a value? I know that the person that I'm selling to has a need, but how am I going to position this to have a value? I also thought, as someone is learning a little bit about the sales training process, and as Kara mentioned, to have that personal connection, call a local salesperson, and a student should shadow that person and go on a sales call. A lot of people in the sales business were part of FFA, and so it's not going to be such a grand reach for them to say, yes, I'd like to do that. I think there's a great value there, and seeing how the sales process happens firsthand is really important. Since this year's item is a welding helmet, maybe there's an ag retailer somewhere that could be reached out to, and the student can learn a little bit from them. Going back to that sales process, it's important to find a model to follow and then to practice applying each step. And even as I look at that pro selling book, there's a lot of detail in there, but essentially as a judge, what I'm looking for is a conversation to help have my needs identified, and then closing the sale. And one thing I want to mention here is it's important to look at the scorecard that is, of course, the tool that I'm going to be used to do the evaluation of the sales call, and focus on those things that are listed on that card. I'm going to just throw it out there. Closing the sale, I think, probably receives the most number of points, and that is the thing that most often gets overlooked. So I would rely on that sales card or on that scorecard to be a useful part of my preparation. And I would say practice. It's pretty obvious as you're judging those students who have actually practiced, made up in their own mind a scenario and practiced that prior to the actual day of the event, just asking questions and also helping to refine their understanding of the product. Developing how and why questions. Of course, they're not going to know exactly what that scenario is, but you can pretty much figure out who your clients or who you're trying to sell to will be. So I would say another key would be to anticipate any objections, prepare facts and evidence to overcome those objections. I think what's going to be important to a person who's buying this welding equipment, and be prepared to share those benefits and evidence that will be the most meaningful to the person that you're making the sale to. This is a product that people can get their hands on easily, so try it, make a list. What did you like about it? What did you notice about it? How would it be best used? What other products are on the market that are comparable? Why is this one better than what's out there? And essentially, it's important for the student to put themselves in my shoes as that customer. And then based on their experience, they'll have an easier time explaining the product and what the benefits are. Kara mentioned the use of this 1-inch notebook. And as I was thinking about this, if I was getting prepared for this contest, I would make sure that I had a picture of the helmet so I had something to rely on. As Kara mentioned, there's no points that are given or taken away for any materials that aren't prepared or are prepared. But I'm thinking that it might be handy in that notebook to have a list of maybe the benefits of this helmet so that when I get nervous in that sales situation, I have something that I can refer back to. It's a good place to put proof of benefits or things that might be a little bit harder to explain or harder to remember. So that sales notebook can be just a great sales tool that can be put together before the actual show. So the day of the event, I guess the first thing that I'd say is interacting is important. That friendly greeting and small talk is maybe the hardest thing to get started on, maybe the hardest thing for the student to do, but that also helps so much to set the tone. And as Kara mentioned, the weather is something that we all have in common and is something that's a good icebreaker to get the conversation started. I would say, along with forgetting to close the sale, forgetting the small talk is probably the second thing that I would want people to be more prepared to do. So after small talk, of course, then we're finding out about what my situation is. The questioning is going to be the most important skill that someone brings to this contest. The discovery process can be hard for some people. You're kind of vulnerable because you're asking questions and you're not going to know what those questions are. It's uncomfortable sometimes to ask those questions, but this is the way that that student's going to be exposed to the answers and the needs. And really, they need to look at this as they're helping me. They're helping me solve a problem that I have. And one thing that I think you'll find as you read through the pro selling material is you should never tell a customer anything that you can ask them. So always be sure to pose things as a question rather than as a statement. I think it's important to talk or to learn about the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions. Find out what my needs are, find out what my problems are, what are my concerns, what am I going to value, and that's going to be the way that they do the discovery process and help offer me the appropriate solution, which is, of course, the welding helmet. Objections, I'll just say that as a judge, my goal is never to come up with some objection that just is never going to be overcome. I'm not going to make it so difficult that the sale can't be made. I'll probably throw out one objection just to see how the student does respond to that. But again, if they have this notebook with things that they've thought about and a list of the questions that they're going to ask, and some of those objections are things that they've thought about before, and they should be well prepared to answer my objection. As I mentioned before, closing the sale is a piece of this event that sometimes doesn't happen, and they don't necessarily have to fill out an invoice or a sales form. As long as we end with some kind of an agreement. Maybe that agreement is they're coming back in a couple of days to do another assessment of what I need, or maybe I've decided I'm going to purchase 2 or 3 of these products. Anyway, just coming to a finality of our sales call and making sure that we're both on the same page with what those next actions are is very important, and sometimes this is left out. And I guess I would end my dialogue here with just saying practice. It's important to remember, as Kara said, this isn't a presentation, it's not a demonstration, it's simply a conversation, and that needs to be practiced. The whole sales pitch, I'll call it, needs to be practiced before the day of the event. That scorecard's really important to look at, and again, open the conversation, figure out what my need is, and then come to some close of the conversation, figure out what the next steps are or what the next actions are, and we've closed that sale. So those are just some tips that I've come up with based on my experience. Are there any questions for me or Kara? It's really a great contest, and I'll tell you, it's kind of fun when someone walks in and says, you know, I just was told 5 minutes ago that I'm doing this. And I think, oh, what's this going to be like? And sometimes those are the best presentations or the best conversations, because that student hasn't turned this into a demonstration and has not turned it into a presentation. They simply know they just need to sit down and start talking to me and ask questions. And that's the beauty of sales. Well, if there are no questions, Kara, I'll turn it back to you. Okay. Or if someone comes up with some questions, we can get those covered as well. Okay, well,
Yeah, if there's no other questions for Jane or for myself, I just kind of want to leave you with, and I think what Jane talked about when I talked about is how important we think this contest is for students' future development. I know I talked about how much I get paid to do this, but really I just think it is so important to be able to communicate, to have that conversation with people, because no matter what you're going to do, whether your business card says sales or not, the skills that you learn here, you're going to use for the rest of your life.
So, well, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jane. I'll just give one more opportunity if there are any questions from the group.
Oh, I guess one more thing too. feel free to email with questions. You come up with something now, later after this, or if you're watching the recorded version of this, feel free to email me with any questions.
So very good, and it's kara.heidemann@unl.edu. So with that, any last questions? Last call for questions then. Well, you must cover it very well.
Yeah.
So, well, Kara, first of all, if you didn't catch it, it was sarcasm in terms of being how much.
Oh, right. Yes. No, I really do enjoy doing this. So that's.
This is a completely volunteer position that our departments find people who are willing and qualified and enthusiastic about working with our students. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you, Jane, for being a judge. How many years have you judged for us?
I think it's 5 years.
5 years now?
I hear it.
Well, I hope that you're back with us here in April again, too. And so,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Kara. And we'll have this thing posted online next week. So thanks, everyone.